The Boston court is in turmoil. A code red alert has been issued, which means a major crisis has occurred. MM, Leisha, and Caleb are summoned by the prince. September 4th, 2019. Vampires walk among us. Unknowing, we've built their cities, fought their wars, and sated their hunger. For centuries, these creatures have been organized into rival sects, the largest of which is the Camarilla. In its domains, Camarilla courts enforce the Masquerade, a global conspiracy hiding the existence of vampires from the mortal world. Breaking the Masquerade is punishable by final death. In Boston, vampire factions have long been at each other's throats. After much conflict, Hazel Iverson, the new prince, has sealed a fragile pact with a group of blood sorcerers, known as the Hartford Chantry. This alliance will not only provide stability to the domain, but will hand the prince the blood trade. The trafficking of blood and mortal victims that serves the need of the vampire elite. Tonight, the undead will celebrate. Nacon presents.
I'll just get this going. There, ready. We're all set.
Big
Now,
Bad Wolf
to begin,
studio game.
Tell me, what do you see?
I don't know.
Okay. Try this. Focus on your vision.
No, it's happening. No, it's too late. It's too late now.
Okay, it appears I'm having a vision. Everybody seems to be dead. So let's see what that means. Vampire, the Masquerade, Swan song. Walkthrough of part 1. Leisha.
Did you feel it too?
Halsey.
Take your stuff. We're getting out of here. We've got a problem.
April Bosley.
Call them back.
Prince Iverson.
What's going on?
It's the prince. We must go quickly.
Prince's quarters, 11 p.m. Oh, what a hottie.
Come on. Damn it.
Jeremy
Hurry up.
Atkins.
Calm down. Maybe it has nothing to do
M.M.
with
Lewis.
the party. You know full well I was in charge of it. If anything goes wrong, it's my head on the chopping block. Fuck. Damn it! It took Hazel months to convince the Hartford Chantry to ally themselves with us. So they finally accept, and then bam, a code red. There's never been a Code Red in Boston, damn it! This has gotta be bad, MM.
In dialogue, some answers require the use of your skills. Your skill level is compared with that of your opponent. The higher rating wins. 2.
It's not like you had anything to do with it. I'm sure...
You don't get it. I was in charge of organizing the party.
But security is Jara's problem,
Yeah,
normally.
except Jara is a member of the Primogen. I'm not.
But you're a harpy. The prince will cover you. You know she's always looking for an excuse to take him down a notch.
We'll see.
What do we do next?
When everyone's safe, we move on to phase 2. We clean house.
What do you mean by we clean house?
Getting rid of our archives, our documents, anything that might betray our network and relationships.
What comes after phase 2?
Just pray that it never comes to that.
Come on, tell me.
We run, we leave everything behind, and we go into hiding, as far from here as we can.
There's no way I'm leaving Boston. Everything I have is right here in the city. It took me years to build my clubs. I've worked too hard to give it up now.
You won't have a choice.
I know you hate coming here. Are you gonna be alright?
What do you think? I know how to behave, Jay.
Yeah, I know. Just keep your cool, and it'll be fine.
Ah, my little darlings. You're here at last. The fear that something horrible had happened to you terrified me.
No call for theatrics, April.
The prince asked to see you as soon as you arrived, Amim.
Okay. M.M. Lewis, founder of the Black Rattlers, Clan, Toreador, Generation 12H. Date of embrace 1929. Sire Hilda McAndrews. Men of bronze. Born in Harlem in 1901, M.M. grew up in a family of poor African-American performers. Her father, Mason, was a musician by night and window washer by day. Her mother, Clara, sang when she was not taking care of her 4 children. When he was drafted in 1917, M.M.'s father enlisted in the 15th Regiment of the New York National Guard, the Harlem Hellfighters, and participated in the liberation of France. He joined a jazz band in his unit that became a phenomenal success after the war ended. Pathé Studios had them record an album which would become the first jazz record to be played non-stop on French phonographs. Following this success, Mason decided to bring his family to Paris and make a living playing his music in the jazz clubs that were beginning to sprout up throughout the capital. Paris. M.M. was 17 years old and was a dancer. She spent time with the elite who would come to listen to her father, and it took little time for her to get noticed. She discovered the Foleys, Bergerers, and their international shows. She auditioned for it and passed with flying colors. From odd jobs backstage to subbing in for other performers, she proved herself and became a headline act at just 21 years old. Her burlesque stripping act took Paris by storm, making her extremely popular. And men began traveling through Europe, dancing to packed houses in the hottest cabarets. And men was young, beautiful, and radiant. Her life was the night as the champagne and money flowed. She was determined and alluring, the embodiment of a free and independent woman of the early 20th century. She had a fiery temperament that soon attracted the attention of Europe's divas. To Die in Your Arms, December 1923. MM performed 8 times at the Vienna Carl Theater. On the first night, she was introduced to Hilda McAndrews by the theater director outside of her dressing room. MM was immediately captivated by this mysterious aristocrat who attended each of her performances. They spent the nights that followed in bars, exchanging stories about their lives and their art, their passion, and their struggles. Hilda was cultured, charismatic, and politically engaged in the suffragette movement in the women's artistic community. MM, to her surprise, fell under her spell and gave in to this irresistible attraction. A passionate relationship formed right away between the two women, who became inseparable. Hilda confided in MM and told her about her vampiric nature over the course of the next 3 years. For their love to endure, but also seduced by the promise of eternal youth, MM asked to be sired right away. It would take yet another 3 years, however, before Hilda managed to get the local prince to agree to it. The prince feared that the young woman's notoriety could be a danger to the masquerade. With the prince's blessing at last, Hilda threw a spectacular celebration in honor of her companion, whom she would embrace at the end of this memorable evening. The sound of boots. Having lived in Vienna since their meeting in the Carl Theater, Hilda and MM left Austria in 1934 for Paris, then Bordeaux. Alas, France's surrender in 1940 forced the couple to reconsider their plans. With the help of her contacts in London, Hilda managed to negotiate a crossing to Boston, her hometown. Though hesitant at first, the city's Malvacean prince, Quentin King, finally granted them asylum. MM and Hilda were introduced to the court, where 50 years of intrigue would bring their passion to its inevitable end. Okay. Gela Bizori, the imperial throne. 1710, gave birth to her firstborn son. She was a doting mother, constantly concerned about the child who was destined to inherit his father's throne. He was given an excellent education and learned about courtly life with his younger brother. The two brothers have very different personalities. While Suleiman was quiet, stubborn, and adventurous, Mustafa was more versatile and fearful. The fall. In 1730, their father became unpopular, and the Janissary revolted against him and forced him to abdicate in favor of his nephew. From that moment on, seething, Suleiman began plotting revenge in the long term to restore his father to the throne. Although he was aware of the problem this would cause, he felt the only thing to do was put the rightful ruler back on the throne. His mother, having heard of this, made him promise to give up on his plan and disappear before the Janissaries could kill him. She convinced him to leave for the west by faking his death. He secretly set sail one night in 1732. Mahara died a few weeks later out of grief over the loss of her son, it was said. However, the truth is quite different. Having caught wind of her betrayal, the Janissaries murdered her. The boat that belonged to Jeanette de Bazzi's family took him to the port of Antwerp, where, in homage to his mother, he called himself Galeb Basori. He was adopted by a family of diamond merchants who traded between Europe and the New World, and whose newfound fortune grew rapidly. Under their guidance, Galeb sailed the oceans in search of new business ventures. He honed his knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, forged relationships around the globe, and used the opportunity to weave an impressive web of influence. His business dealings brought him into contact with aristocrats whose conventions he mastered, as well as with drunken sailors whom he learned to manage. Out of necessity, he became a leader. His natural authority and ability to adapt won him respect. Little by little, his life on the deck of the ship became his only source of pleasure. He never set foot in his native land again. It was through sailors that he learned of his mother's death, followed by that of his father, and finally his brother's ascension to the throne. A throne that could have been his, a family that he could have saved. No matter how far he sailed, these thoughts were always with him. The embrace. During a stop in Calais in 1740, he met Jean-Baptiste Taverner, a renowned French explorer and merchant who had supposedly died in Moscow in 1689. In reality, he was adventure-seeking to expand his control of the diamond trade at all costs. The collaboration between the two men proved to be fruitful, even beyond their expectations. His effectiveness and his discretion delighted them. In space of a few years, the profession dealings were enriched by secrets. The young sailor saw in the mentor the father figure he had never really had. One calm night, after a particularly turbulent Atlantic crossing, Caleb opened up a little bit more and told him about his background. Tavernier understood what appealed to him about this young sailor, his nobility, which, although hidden, naturally emanated from him. A thought came to Tavernier, who had never sired anyone before. He began to treat Caleb like a true member of his family, and spoke to him about the occult, to gauge his reaction. Then came the thorny issue of revealing his true nature. Tavernier portrayed the embrace as a gift. It didn't take much to convince the young sailor of the value of agelessness. Caleb accepted. His embrace was painful and bitter. It took him several days to be able to tolerate the beast that would now gnaw at him for eternity. Tavernier attempted to focus his child's anger on the revenge he would get against those who had deprived him of his throne, but Caleb did not see things that way. His thirst for justice was replaced by a disgust for humankind, and a growing disinterest in their affairs. He now wished to rise above the keen, to use his eternity for previously impossible purposes. His sire, who saw a certain interest in it, let his child experiment. Caleb spent diamond mines, half a century roaming the seas, getting rich by acquiring diamond mines and trading companies. He toyed with the laws of men, but scrupulously respected the principles that the Tavernier had instilled in him. The mutually beneficial and balanced relationship continued until the early 19th century. Under the pretext of wanting to share his love of nature and the great outdoors with Caleb, Baptiste invited him to go to the region of Maurice to meet an old acquaintance, the explorer Toussaint Charbonneau. The Gangret chose to establish his den in the heart of the forest and live like an animal. Despite his sire's instructions, Caleb had difficulty finding him. After a physical encounter, the trapper understood why Tavernier had sent him this venture, so he attempted to share his connection to the animal world with him, as he had done with the sire before him. While Caleb was not interested in his ability to communicate with animals, his talent at tracking prey seemed more worthy of a kindred. If proven to be necessary in the midst of sports for a palate as refined as his, not satisfied with just any kind of blood. With practice, Caleb was able to track down prey on his own. He even trained him to differentiate the essence of a mortal from that of a kindred, or even from that of a lupine. The onset of winter season forced the men to part ways. Basri returning to civilization with a new skill. Although he would never reveal this to his sire, he was thankful to him for having given him this opportunity. 1806, he settled down in Boston. Underwood's business was failing. Basni formed a close friendship with Underwood and inherited the business from him when he died in 1833. 26-year-old had asked the man he viewed as his mentor to stay with him and help him. Caleb agreed for several reasons. His respect for this business-minded mortal, whom he deemed worthy of his interest, his honor that urged him not to abandon the relationship he had with James, and the profits he could make. He felt that his future lay in the New World, and that it was better to settle there as soon as possible. It was with the agreement of his sire that he moved to Boston for good. Tavernier sensed Caleb had made great progress, and it was clear the student had surpassed the master. He felt a kind of pride in this. While keeping his distance, he remained in regular contact with his child, treating him as an equal. It was on Caleb's advice that he moved to South Africa to set up new diamond mines. The child. Okay, it's a long backstory, but alright. Beryl Underwood exceeded Caleb's expectations. He was more talented than his father, and the venture had something to do with it. But a vampire cannot become involved with a mortal over the long term without compromising their identity. Over the years, Beryl's doubts led him to question Caleb, who gave him a frank answer. He admitted his monstrous nature to him. This was far from repellent to Beryl, who became more determined and asked Caleb to give him the embrace. Caleb had never thought of siring a child himself, so he put off the decision and did not accept until 1869. Beryl's embrace was quick. He immediately felt empowered. His ambition knew no bounds, and he sought to enrich himself by any means necessary. The Sugar Trust became the center of an international conglomerate that existed beyond the sugar trade. Beryl was involved in every plot, every betrayal. Caleb began to be suspicious of him, and he withdrew, which Beryl did not forgive him for. Executor. Over the course of the 20th century, seeing Beryl's unscrupulous behavior corrupting the Keen through the environmental and health impacts of his business, Caleb distanced himself from the business. He felt he had created a monster, a threat to all kindred. Quentin King, the Prince of Boston, offered him the position of executor of the prince, which he accepted as a means of escape. King made him one of his favorite tools, sending him to hunt down those who threatened the Boston Camarilla. After centuries of building a business empire, chasing opportunities, and eliminating competitors, Caleb derived satisfaction from the simple task of doing what he was told. He didn't count the kindred destroyed, the mortals killed, or the thin-blooded suppressed. He served his prince with his signature loyalty. When Beryl Underwood joined the Quentin King's Primogen Council, Caleb grew wary. The beckoning in recent years, the elders have started to feel an increasingly insistent urge to travel. Tavernier was one of the first to give in, not having been warned. Caleb considered this a betrayal. However, he also felt the same need. He was almost ready to give in to it, but King's disappearance changed everything. Underwood asked Caleb to become the new Prince of Boston. He hoped to be able to manipulate Caleb to serve his own interests, but Caleb knew his child all too well and refused this poisoned gift. So it was Hazel Iverson who became Prince of Boston. Quickly she surprised everyone by proving to be much less manipulable than expected, which was a pleasant surprise to Caleb. He then decided to put himself at her service. Iverson was happy to have a renowned ally like him, and accepted. One last wish. His interest in the Camarilla and his kind was renewed at this new prince, seeming to hold her own, and she had great plans for the future. It was during the same period Gabe heard about a young mortal who had just graduated from MIT and had gone to Silicon Valley to found a startup specializing in the blue economy. He inquired about her and finally met her. Finally, he won her trust and offered to make her his ghoul, with the aim of embracing her in the near future. He hoped to make her the counterpart of Burrell's self-destructive drive. However, Hazel Iverson didn't subscribe to the same policy as Quentin King and would not grant the right to sire so easily. She even saw it as a way to maintain control over her precious Caleb, who was forced to wait. Consumed by the beckoning, he could no longer bring himself to leave without having repaired what he considered to be his greatest mistake.
I wouldn't dilly-dally.
Aisha is the Princess Seer. Machiavellian claim. Princess Seer, date of embrace 1939, that which remains. Leisha's story is nothing more than a collection of fragments due to her memory impairment. She remembers that she's from France, near Lyon, and that Dr. Richard Durham is her psychiatrist, as he has always been. She knows that he saved them from the war in 1939, both her and her daughter Halsey. He made it possible for them to join the Boston court held at the time by Quentin King. A child of Machiavelli like them, the rest is nothing but light and shadow. Leisha knows the names and sometimes even the stories of those around her without knowing exactly how or why. She remembers Quentin King, the previous prince, and his legendary obsession, and more recently, Hazel, the first year of her rise to power. Leisha remembers her warmly and fondly, despite only knowing her for a single year, before leaving to be put into slumber at the Malachi Institute of Boston as prescribed by Dr. Dunham. Leisha suffers from sudden visions where the present moment and the possible futures bleed into one another. She fights her gift in order to be fit to take care of Halsey. However, this does not serve the prince's plans, as Hazel views the power as a way to master fate and bolster her ambitions.
If I were you. As for you, Journey, someone's triggered a code red. If If anything has happened over there, I'll hold you personally responsible.
Spike Lee movies.
You know, back in the day, nobody could bat an eyelash without you knowing about it. You must know exactly what Jay is being blamed for, don't you?
Emem. My dear Emem. I adore you. Really, I do. But darling, please. You're way out of your league here. This alliance with the Hartford Chantry is crucial. The prince is on edge. We can't get through to anyone over there.
what does this have to do with Jay?
Yeah. I like this.
Daddy, stop.
Shut up.
She was in charge of the whole thing, for goodness sake. Listen, both of you. From now on, I don't want to hear another word out of either of you. The prince is furious. Journey, you're coming with me.
I don't see why.
And as for you, Hazel wants to see you. Right now.
boom. What's the name of the boombox you used to have back in the day?
It's gonna be a long night.
Miss Lewis, welcome.
Consider it done. That'll do.
Who's she, Caleb?
Mem Lewis.
She smiles like a toreador.
Letters etched in bold right upon her teeth.
What about that bearded guy who's swallowing his bile?
Dejan Siaka.
A Tremere warlock, then?
Keep him at a healthy distance. With a sideward glance, he could make the blood in your veins boil.
Is court attendance usually this sparse?
What was rule number 2?
Don't talk too much. And never talk about yourself. You don't trust anyone, do you?
Not anyone here. And you'd be wise to do the same. I'd hate to be Caius right about now.
Why?
He's second honcho of house security. This promises to be a busy night.
I know what you mean. It's one thing to have been told that the Nosferatu don't age well. It's another thing to see it for yourself.
It's by no fault of their own.
Do you think you'll be able to ask the prince tonight if you can embrace me?
No. Now is no longer the time.
And he is your child?
Mr. Beryl Underwood. He is tortured by a demon. We all have one. The beast that preys upon him is a love of money. If someone held a stake to his heart and cried your money or your unlife, he'd ask you for some time to think it over.
It's his greed, then, that cost him your favor?
Everything about him was disappointment. Never forget that the court is a chessboard. We are monsters, and we sacrifice pawns. If you want to be a major piece, then behave accordingly.
But...
Nothing can happen to you here. We're in the prince's house. She must be finished by now. Wait for me. This won't take long.
It's out of the question, man. Away with this.
What? Who? I posted yesterday. You can answer them.
All right. Calm down, Dijon.
Where's Journey?
What's it to you?
Don't start with me. She was in charge of the party. She has to take responsibility for this.
Leave her out of it.
It's too late for that. Don't waste your time covering for her. She's not a kid anymore. I haven't heard from my child, and no one's able to get through to them over there.
Go on then. Go and save Imani and stop wasting your breath.
There are rules. Need I remind you? We're all stuck here.
You're such a good boy.
You'll never change.
Dijon!
What? Oh, come on, Hilda, she needs to grow up.
Leave us.
Anything for the boombox, Platonic? Boombox and Platonic.
I don't need your help.
Mem, please.
Stop calling me that.
I was worried about you.
You still haven't moved on, have you? You're always getting in my way.
Lower your voice. People are staring.
Do you know what this code red is all about? You're in the Primogen. You must know something.
I'm in the same boat as the rest of you. Apparently, it was from one of Moore's retainers. That's all I know.
Who's that?
Jason Moore. Don't you remember him? He's the human who manages our interests when the sun comes up. He handles our assets, errands with the banks.
What does he have to do with this?
I don't know. It now seems that Miss Hazel Iverson, the mighty Prince of Boston, is no longer on speaking terms with the Primogen. As if now were the ideal time.
She asked to see me. Do you know why?
My best guess is that she'd like to talk to you about Journey, of course. I always warned you that girl was trouble.
Yeah, sure. I've gotta go.
What? Huh? Not really. It crumbs. Yeah, just literally crumbs. But what there is. What?
Ryan says he wants to do the same as yesterday.
Yes.
Get $80. Why don't you
He's
get
gonna
$80?
just say yeah. He'll bring 80. I know he will. Just say yeah. Say absolutely. Let me know when you're here.
Getting $60 now.
I know what I'm doing. I'm not. I got it. He didn't give me 40. I'm not doing that again. The only reason I did it is because I got extra money from him the day before. I told him to give me an extra fucking 20, and then I would give him a hit for it next time I saw him, because we didn't have anything. And I'm fucking streaming right now. Please, let's talk about it after. Just let me know how long.
Hazel must be upstairs. I'd better hurry.
What about Jara? I haven't seen her.
What a shitty night. Hazel must be pissed. What the hell could she want with me?
How long?
20 minutes.
Huh?
20 minutes.
Okay.
Is everything, Mom? Penny for your thought?
Nothing. Shh. What were you saying?
You saw pictures again? You're not going back to the Institute, are you?
No, don't.
Does she want one?
I already asked her. She said, yep.
Alright. Did you talk to Will already?
Yep, Will's gonna be in 45 minutes.
How many did you tell him to bring?
3.
Alright. He's here.